My name is Bree Hansen, and I'm part of the HRM Plus support team. And I've also got Deb on the line today, who's also part of the HRM Plus support team. And today we're going to talk about all the fun things you should know as a clock hour provider in the state of Washington. Now, we have clients that are in other states, but the majority of our professional development clients are from Washington State, so that's kind of the focus of today's webinar. With all my webinars, I like to mute you when you come in just to help alleviate feedback and background noise, but you always have my permission to unmute yourself and ask a question. You know, say, hey, Bree, talking too fast, I didn't get that. It doesn't offend me. You know, we're not in a traditional classroom where I can, you know, people can raise their hand, or it can depend on visual cues to clue me in if you're following along or not. So since we're not in that traditional classroom, we don't have normal rules to follow. So please, it's not going to offend me to, you know, interrupt and say, hey, wait, slow down. If that's not your style, you know, there is a chat feature within the WebEx, I don't know what you call this platform. Feel free to type a little chat message, and Deb and I can see that message, and if it's a question that would be good for the group, we'll, you know, maybe read it aloud and answer that question. Oftentimes, your questions or your comments, you know, are ones that everybody else has. So I love it when you guys have even just a statement, because it could be something that other people are dealing with, or you have an idea of something that's working great. You know, share it, because that feedback could be very valuable to somebody else who's part of the webinar. So let's get rolling. Okay, so OSPI has a great web page that kind of lays out the do's. I don't like to say the don'ts, but the do's of what's involved when it comes to being a clock hour provider. And that web address is here on this first slide of my PowerPoint. And I use it, I reference it a lot, even when you guys have questions and stuff. You know, basically everything comes from the WACS, and it's nice because they've taken that and they've kind of summarized it, and they put it in a little language that's a little easier to understand. You know, if anybody's taken time to read the WACS, sometimes you have to read them 2 or 3 times to really get at the meat of what it's meaning, and then sometimes you still don't really know what it means. So I like that OSPI has put that page together, and they update it, which is nice. They revamped it last year and made it even easier. And we sent out the link to all of our clients last summer, just saying, hey, bookmark this page and set it aside. It's really helpful. And so hopefully you guys have taken the time to look at it and refresh yourself with some of the things on there. There's little things on there that I forget about. And so hopefully today you might learn something new, or remind yourself about something that you might not always follow or need to be better about following. And, you know, we can all be here together to help each other be better at being a clock hour provider. Okay. So let's see. Come on, computer. Behave. All right. You guys all should know this. In the state of Washington, if you're a school district, you're automatically approved to be a clock hour provider. Everybody else has to submit an application annually to get approval. So yay for you, you don't have to worry about that. However, in order to issue a transcript, you do have to get special written or approval authorization from OSPI, which all of you have done. We helped you get that set up when you guys launched your PD portals back in whenever you set it up, whenever that was. We had to send it off to them, and they had to sign off on it and say, yes, we issue approval. And you actually got added to a list that can be found, I can't remember where, that says that your district is able to offer and issue a transcript. So that's kind of the difference. All districts are clock hour providers. Not all school districts can offer a transcript. It's like all squares are rectangles, but not all rectangles are squares. Okay. To clock out, in order to provide clock hour, the offering has to be at least 3 hours, and that's in that WAC 180, 185, blah, 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 blah. I'm not going to go and say all that because I get all confused. And 1 clock hour equals 60 hours of pre-approved offering. Your 60 minutes can include a break time and a passing time, and it's up to the clock hour provider to determine what a reasonable break time looks like. I know I came from Vancouver. I was there a long, long time, at least it felt like it, and I'm still kind of there because my husband works there. They actually have it written out. I actually have the papers. I should find them. I think for every 90 minutes, they can give them, like, I want to say like 5 minutes. I don't know. I should find that and share it. If anybody wants it, they actually have some really cool resources, and they were agreeable on letting me share their resources with you, even on like how to write clock hour apps, how to write good objectives, all those things. So if you're interested, I'll actually pull up some of those, that document at the end of the presentation and show you that. So that's good to know that you can include breaks and passing times, and it's up to the clock hour provider to determine what that looks like. The state's not saying it has to equal this. It's up to you guys to decide what that looks like. Okay, questions? I mean, that's the easy stuff, hopefully. Okay, like I said, the WACs kind of are the guiding rules about clock hours. I challenge all of you to make sure that you're familiar with them. It outlines all the standards that you need to know as a clock hour provider. And this web address is an excellent resource. If you don't have it bookmarked on your computer, please do so. We actually added it to the resource tab of your PD portal. So if you go under Management, PD Manager, there's a tab called Resources. That link can be found there if you didn't already have it on there. I know one of our sites had already added it. It was like, wow, that's really cool. Good for them. It's there. So when in doubt, go there. It's also nice sometimes to refer to teachers when they give you pushback on certain issues like evaluation due dates and other things. You can go and show them right then and there. This is the state. It's not us. This is why we do the things that we do, the way we do it. Then that way you can kind of go third point. So hopefully they're not being ornery at you. You can point, tell them it's the state, and maybe they'll leave you alone. I don't know. Okay. So let's talk a little bit about what we're going to talk about today. So taking the guidelines from the state, I've kind of broken it down into 6 main areas that we want to focus on today. And they are your committee, your approval. Committee is a loose term, so your approval process, your course offerings, instructor qualifications, materials, evaluations, and record keeping. Okay. So when I say committee, people panic. It's like, what does that mean? Well, this is the language that comes from the WAC, the agency must have blah, 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 blah. Well, I tell people, don't panic. What that really just means is you have to have real people that meet together and keep some type of notes, but that's about it. They don't give huge, step-by-step procedure of what that looks like. And it can look very differently at each district. It might be where it's an actual formal committee where people actually sit down together in a room and they're reviewing those courses together. Or they might review things together electronically. Or in Vancouver, they do it really different. They have an actual physical committee that meets together once a year. They outline their agenda, kind of this is the direction we're going to go with our PD for the year. And then they have one person who's in charge of actually doing the reviewing and approving. And that person monitors all the course requests that comes in. And whenever one that comes in that's a little questionable or maybe wonky or maybe doesn't quite fit in the norm, then they seek input from the rest of the committee. Otherwise, you know, the ones that, you know, we have kind of some courses, they're always the same old, they're always the same course. So they didn't think it was a good use of time and resources to have a committee sit and look and approving the same old courses, and decided it was more worthwhile to have that one point person be in charge, except for when there was stuff that sat outside of that box, so to speak. Does that make sense? So that approval process can be very different. You know, you have to use the resources you have within your district, and you also need to set up a process that's going to work within your district. In some districts, we wear a lot of hats, and getting 5 people or 3 people, however many people on your committee, to sit together in one room weekly or every other week isn't a reality, because you're getting pulled in 15 different directions. So it's a good idea to once you decide on your process, you know, to have a business plan or something written out so everybody knows what your process is going to be. The one thing that you should do is have some type of documentation of your approval process or your notes. There is a report, and I stole an example of this report from Bellingham, so thank you, Bellingham, and we used one of your reports. That can be pulled up when a course is approved. You can pull up this report, and you could actually set it aside. So this is your notes. This is your approval process. This is your documentation. So here's a random course. I just picked one. So it's going to clearly state the course, you know, location, start date, end date, how many seats, where, who's the instructor, the objectives, and when it was approved and by whom. There. You've got all that, all those requirements that you need per the WAC. It could be, I mean, that's just one option, and that's one way that the system can help you with that. The big thing when it comes to approving your courses is that whomever is signing off, pressing that approve button, is they're going through and they're making sure that those objectives are very clearly written. They're also making sure that the number of clock hours on tab 4 that are being offered actually match up to the times on the agenda or the sessions tab. You know, so if you're saying you're offering 4 clock hours or 3 clock hours, if you go do the math on the sessions tab, they equal. You'd be surprised at how many people aren't very good with math, especially on those multi-session courses, stuff that happens like if you do a PLC, like the high school's doing a PLC over the course of the whole year, sometimes, you know, the math isn't right. So it's really important that that approval process, you know, they're checking those fine details and stuff. So I'm going to pause and see if anybody has any questions or anything they'd like to offer, or if anybody wants to share about their approval process, what they're doing. Like I said, I've got people muted, and if you see the participant box anywhere, you should see your name, and there's a little microphone off on the right with a line through it. It's red. If you tap on that, it'll turn gray, and that means you're unmuted. Or feel free to type in the little chat box, and then either Deb and I will respond to the chat. And if you don't have any questions, we'll just kind of keep on moving on. Awesome. Okay. Okay. Someone have a question?
This is Jody with Trenton School District.
Yes, Jody.
And we actually worked with our tech department and created a complete program where it was very involved, but each week I send our professional learning advisory committee the list of all the courses currently needing to be approved. We require that at least 4 members of the 7-member committee review these and approve them by the following Friday, and then I go in, check it, and when they're approved, I print that out, and then I go to the portal and go in and approve those courses. It was really involved to get it going, but it's really, really slick.
Awesome. I love it.
Yeah.
And thanks for sharing. I love that. That's fabulous. Well, and then you've got your your documentation right there. You've got your sign off. That's fabulous. Thank you. All right, anybody else want to add questions? Thank you, Jody. All right, so let's talk about courses. So when it comes to actual courses, what does the WAC say? Well, it says they have to have objectives. They have to have intended outcomes that need to be written for each course. It needs to have an agenda that specifies the topics to be covered, the days and the times. And the agenda can be covered a couple different ways. We give you flexibility on how you want to use the system to handle that piece. There is a box on the course request that you can hide or not, where you can actually type an agenda in it. Some districts upload an agenda under the materials tab, and some people use the actual sessions tab in lieu of an agenda. So they actually, under the, like the information for participants or whatever, they use that to kind of relay the information, like specifics about the topics and whatnot. So that's how you can address that requirement. And then the other part that the OS, not OSPI, but the WAC talks about as a provider that we're responsible in relation to courses is that the agency needs to provide participants with appropriate forms. So a clock hour form or a transcript, which the system does. So that kind of takes care of that for you. Okay. Course offerings. They need to relate to one or more of the following, which is kind of nice because those are pretty broad when you look at the umbrella so to speak, opportunities to collect, analyze evidence related to student learning, professional certification standards, school and district improvement efforts, K-12 standards and curriculum alignment, current research, all those different things. So when you're offering clock hour courses, that's kind of your guideline, your template. They need to be about these type of, that's the meat. They need to fall into one of these categories. I always tell people sometimes it's easier to, on this one, to focus on what they can't offer. You can't give clock hours for a routine staff meeting or a business meeting or a meal or social hours. My husband always reminds his instructors when he's training them, ask yourself when you're writing your clock hour application, do all the activities promote learning? And if not, then no. He actually had a really good phrase, and I forgot to write it down. That was even better. Oh, and he's not here to ask him. I'll have to ask him again and maybe email it out if I remember to. We can't just give clock hours because we're going to sit in a room for 3 hours. There has to be learning and, going on. We can't just, because we like each other and we're here and we're going to go over this, offer clock hours. Does that make sense? I know you guys know all this. I just like to make sure we're all on the same page. Okay. Another biggie that, always comes up. And I know when I worked in Vancouver, I had building administrators that would always try to sneak in approval for stuff that they did in the summer that they forgot to turn their clock hour form in for. And that's where having that, web address saved on my computer and referring them back to this, and it's outlined, it's in bold, I believe, on that page, prior approval. If courses are not approved by that committee prior to holding them, you're not allowed to approve them retroactively. It's just no. The answer is no. My husband will often say, especially if it's something that's happening over time, well, that first session doesn't count, but if you submit your proposal now, we'll approve the sessions going forward, but we're not going to approve that first session. Sorry, because we can't. And that's a tough one, but the rules are the rules. And that's where you have to kind of sometimes be the meanie and refer them to the WACs so that you can go to that third point so that they can be mad at the Washington Administrative Code, not you. Okay. Instructor qualifications. So we had an update in August to your site, and we had some minor panic from a few of you because your course detail reports wouldn't open. And what we found out is we had a lot of sites approving, giving people the role of instructor that had never actually gone, where those individuals had never actually gone in and checked the box, the instructor box under their profile, and filled out that instructor tab. The reason we have the instructor tab is to meet this qualification, or this, guideline put forth by the state. If you read the WAC, it says that instructors shall have academic or professional experience which specifically qualifies them to conduct the in-service program. So a person has expertise in a particular subject, field, or occupation. I've had principals, I actually had a superintendent argue with me that someone couldn't be an instructor because they didn't have a BA degree. That's not necessarily true. If you're going to teach a course specific to a topic that you have, expertise in, you don't necessarily have to have a BA in that, So we had to show them the WAC to let them know, well, if they're just teaching this course, they're fine. It's kind of funny how they think, but anyway, that's a side topic. So that's the first thing, and that's why, one of the reasons why we fill out that tab, we have an option to upload a resume, and then we ask a few questions and whatnot. The other part that often gets overlooked is it says event registration materials and/or agenda/conference programs need to provide a short description of the qualifications of each instructor. I'm going to click on my little hyperlink here. So this was part of the release. We modified all of the course detail reports to include information on your instructors. So when you open the course detail report, it's going to show the lead instructor, and then it's going to put whatever information is put in the biography field of that instructor tab, and I'll actually open a site in just a second, is going to feed into this report. So let's go to a site, and I'm actually going to pick on my husband because I know he has data, because he's an instructor in Vancouver, and he actually filled out his tab because I made him. He's my guinea pig a lot of times. So just to remind people, so if someone wants to be an instructor, the first thing they do is on this personal information tab, there's this box right here, register as an instructor, and they check that box. And you can actually modify this language up here to say something different. In Vancouver, they said, check this box if you are a professional development instructor for Vancouver. You can put it whatever you want, whatever color you want, whatever size you want, we can help you with that. And they save it. When they save it, the instructor information tab appears in their profile. And they have to fill out this tab. They have the option to upload a resume. Vancouver doesn't really require that because all they care about is this biography field. And they've actually added a little extra information to tell their instructors what they want them to put in this field. So they want them to list their current position, their highest degrees earned, their certification and endorsements, and their professional organization, because they figured that would cover all those WAC requirements that, shows why they should, why they're qualified to be an instructor, so to speak. Does that make sense to everybody? Any questions about that? And so if I were to open, here, I'll open one because I know Brian's an instructor on quite a few courses. So if I go up here to course enrollment, I believe Brian is the instructor on this course. I think this is his course. Come on now, bouncing around on me. He has a lot of information, so let's go to page 2, and let me make this bigger so you can actually see it. So all that information that he typed in his biography field comes over here and it shows up there. So he's the teacher mentor program lead. He's got a master's in theater. He's got a BA in English. He's got a professional teaching certificate with English and theater, and he's got a professional principal and program certificate. So that's how we satisfy that WAC requirement. So back to kind of what I was saying, but then I kind of bounce around a lot. With the release this summer, some of those reports weren't opening because when people were if someone hadn't checked that box and they didn't have that instructor information tab, when the report was trying to populate that field, it couldn't find that information and it was failing. So we sent off reports to every district and said, here are all your people that have the role of instructor that haven't finished this step. And so we tried to work with all of you to get everybody up to date and fixed. I know we haven't checked recently, and I mentioned that to Deb that maybe it's time to just run a double check real quick to make sure people have kind of got everybody fixed so that we don't have any problems with reports opening. So let me write a note right now. Okay. Any questions about that? Oh yes, yeah, I know for some of you it's a big undertaking because some of your instructors may be gone and whatnot. And if you guys need help, we can help you. And the other thing with the biography, if you like how Vancouver changed the language to give guidelines, so what that looks like, we can help you with that. And we would love to help you with that. So send an email to either support, or if you want to work with me directly or Deb directly, just email us and we can help kind of clean that up and make it easier. The reason we picked that particular field, it was kind of the path of least resistance. It just made it quick and easy rather than making, because not everybody has a bio or a resume ready. If you would rather change that course detail report, you can do that so that it actually pulls somebody's resume if they've uploaded it. I mean, that's a possibility. It's a customization. We would have to talk about that, and that's something we could work on individually as well. Okay.
This is Sherry in Monroe, and I wanted to make a comment. So I'm glad to hear that there's another district that does not require the resumes. I've been working with Deb quite a bit in the last week about this because our instructors didn't even have the bio completed. And so we're trying to get that. And then I thought, well, if they have their resumes in HR, that would cover that, but a lot of our instructors have been here for 15, 20 years, so their resume would not be up to date, and so I was concerned about having everybody update their resume, but I'm glad to see that Vancouver is just doing the bio, so I think we could follow that.
And that's what we talked about with them because, they've had instructors, same thing, that have been instructors forever, and so what we did is we helped them. I did a query and pulled a list of all their instructors with email addresses, and we did a mail merge and just said, hey, you're an instructor, and this is what we need you to do. And we gave them step by step and said, there's a field under instructor information tab. It's the biography field, and just put boom, boom, boom. Real simple, take you 5 minutes. It's a WAC requirement. And made it as simple as we could with the fewest, little language on the email because we know how much people love to read. And we sent the email out, and I think 75% of the instructors had it done within a week. And then Nicole, who's kind of their PD person, she tracked down the last 25%. It took her a while. Some of them she just went and did it because they weren't going to do it. How there's always those few people that just won't follow rules or just don't follow rules. And but anyway, it went really well.
Well, that's when you don't approve their courses.
They were like big up on the food chain people, like associate superintendents and stuff. And so she was like, Otherwise, she wouldn't have approved the courses. You know what I'm talking about.
Yeah. So it's like when I first sent out the email about doing it, I mean, I had people just putting in, well, I'm a principal, well, I'm a whatever. It wasn't a, so it's good to have some outlines from other districts to actually email them and say, no, this is what you need to put in there. I like how Vancouver has on the side there. I think we'll have you add something similar to that for us, because I know half of our instructors are going to not want to be instructors anymore if they have to do this.
Exactly. Well, and the problem,
so we'll clean it up.
Yeah, we'll help you. We love to help you. One problem is, we never made that field required, and so we will in this. Our plan is to make that a required field, and another one is to make I have some interest on altering what is required and what isn't required on that tab. So that'll be a later release.
Okay.
But we're learning, and I've read the WAC 1,000 times, but I never really noticed that particular thing that they needed to be on the program materials. And it was actually Vancouver that pointed it out and said, hey, did you see this? And I was like, what? So that's, when we notice those things, we try to keep up and make sure that we're WAC compliant, because, ultimately that's our responsibility to follow the rules. So we want to. And, we all try to work together and share what we're doing, because if, somebody's doing something that's simple and looks good, why not share it with everybody else so that, why recreate the wheel? It's all about collaboration in my mind.
I agree with that. Thank you.
Oh, welcome. One thing, yes. Another thing that I thought was interesting when you read the WAC is this last bullet. In the service education instructor, so instructors will be responsible and must ensure collection of the sign-in sheets. Evaluations, not so much because it's electronic, so they're off the hook on that because the system takes care of that. But instructors are responsible for turning in the sign-in sheet. So I've had a few districts that are now pointing that out and removing the instructor role for those repeat offenders that just aren't taking care of business, that just 6 months go by, 12 months go, that aren't turning stuff in because people aren't getting their clock hours because they can't verify. I have one of my districts that turns the participants on to the instructors. The participants will call and complain, and she's like, hey, talk to the instructor. They didn't turn in the sign-in sheet. I can't post the class. You can't get credits. Go hound them. Don't hound me. It's a problem because when I was in your guys' seat, having to post classes, and there's just always one or two people that just lose stuff or don't seem to care, and drove me nuts. And I didn't realize that it's written right there in the WAC that they're the ones that are responsible. It's not you and I, it's them. So you might show them that. I don't know. I don't know if you guys struggle with that like I did when I was kind of running the portal for my district.
Bree, can you hear me?
Yes, I can.
Okay. Jody, with the Renton School District, what we did, because we had a real challenge getting our instructors set up, as you well know, that went back and forth a lot. So my director created a brief webinar that tells the instructors just what their responsibilities are. There's also a PowerPoint we created, and then I did a brief Word document. And whenever we have an employee that wants to become a ProDev portal instructor, I just send out those attachments, and once they've completed viewing the webinar, reading the instructions, and completing their steps on the ProDev portal, then I assign the role as an instructor, and it states very clearly that what their responsibilities are as an instructor, because we were running into the same thing, and I wasn't getting attendance rosters, so we have 14 days to complete the evaluation. I have to have the course's attendance verified, so it's really pulled things together quite nicely.
Fabulous. Thank you for sharing that. That's awesome. I love it when I hear people have set up, these, I call them business practice, I guess, I love that. You guys have created, training, kind of a real step-by-step procedure to kind of ensure everybody's on the same page. And I hear success stories. That's awesome. Thank you so much for sharing. Okay, next slide. We're getting close. And you guys are an awesome audience. I really appreciate this. Materials. This one's an easy one. You guys all do this. Agenda. We talked about that already under, kind of courses, but, have dates, times of the presentation. The contents need to be clearly articulated. That's our objectives. Should have short descriptions of the instructors. That's the course detail report, kind of all, we cover that under there. Program materials need to be available to all attendees. That's where if you use the system's nice because they can go and they can print their course detail. They can access the course detail report. If you attach any documents to the materials tab, they have access to it. So whether or not a participant takes you up on it, you are covered because they have the ability to do that. We make it available to everybody that way. We cover it that way. We need to have sign-in sheets for people to sign in. And the evaluations, did you know that we're supposed to provide the completed evaluation results to participants? And if you'll remember with the last release, we did that. So now after a course is completed, the evaluation summary report, so all of the anonymous comments and summary information is available under the My Records report. So let's go and we'll pick on my husband again just because I have that portal up and, I can pick on him. I'm married to him. He has to let me pick on him. The employees or participants, I always say employees, sorry, can come here and go to the evaluation summary. And any of their completed courses, they can open one. They won't know who said what, but they have the option now. I don't know why my computer is not, it's loading, see. I forgot, this is a huge class, probably why I'm being impatient. And I pressed the button like 5 times because, I've had probably too much coffee. So now all participants have the ability to come in here and see what other people had to say about the course. Just to point out, it always restates, the course, the times, and restates those objectives. Or no, this is the question. The objectives are on the actual evaluation. So they can go in and they can read that feedback, what other people have to say, if they agreed, any comments about the course are available. So that's how we meet that WAC requirement. That's your materials. You don't even have to worry about it anymore. Okay, let me go back and relaunch that. And yes, I have to switch these back over because my computer's stupid. Oh, I shouldn't say that word, sorry. I'm working on my kids. That's not saying stuff like that. Okay, evaluations. This is always a hot topic and a struggle for some. So hopefully, the longer you've had your portal, it's become maybe a less of a struggle as people get used to it. I know the first year you adopt the online portal, this is probably one of the biggest challenges, kind of that pushing a boulder up the hill, kind of would be an analogy, I would say. So first off, let's talk about basic evaluation components must include. It's pretty simple. The extent to which the objectives have been met. You want to ask them the perception of the relevance or quality of the offering, and the extent to which the activities identified in the in-service program have been met. And then any suggestions for improving the in-service education program if repeated. I don't know if you know it, but if you go and look at your evaluation, if you open it on your site, at the very top, it actually states the objectives of the course so that participants can check to make sure they've been met. First thing, it lists the course, the start time, end time, location, all that stuff, and it restates those objectives. So, we want to make sure, since that's what a component of what the WAC wants, we restate it right then and there. And then that suggestions for improving actually shows you that summary, which I just went and showed you when I forgot I had it linked into my slides. So sorry about that. And then the other thing is right on that OSPI website in red, it says evaluations must be completed for attendees to receive clocked hours. Back in the day when everything was paper, it was near impossible because everything was also supposed to be anonymous, to enforce that. But now that things have become electronic, we're required to enforce that. You know, and that's hard. People they get mad about that. And, you know, I always have tried to tell them, well, look at what you've given up and you don't have to do anymore, or what you've gained. You know, you're not filling out a form. Remember, back in the day, you'd have to fill out the form in order to get your clock hour, your name, address, all that stuff. That's all done for you now. Really, all a participant has to do anymore is click a couple buttons to get registered. And if they don't even do that, we do that for them half the time. So their ultimate responsibility is to do an evaluation, and they get their clock hours. So it's minimal. They don't have to do much. And so I don't think it's a lot to ask to do. And if I've looked up your guys' evaluations, very few of them are that labor intensive either. So, you know, hopefully as time has gone on and the longer you've had your portal, that's become less of an issue. I know new hires we tend to struggle with. Because they don't understand yet, and sometimes you have to extend a little grace to your new hires. You know, with some people, I've just had to help them understand the why. They don't understand that you can't just hold everything for them, because there's a process. You know, you got to post the course, upload it to another system if you're a Skyward or a Business Plus person, and that it's not just this simple little thing. It's a kind of a cascading rippling effect. So I don't know. Questions, things you're struggling with, ideas with the evaluation? I know I'm talking a lot, which I know is not effective learning, to hear me talk. Deb, am I missing anything important? Okay. I'm going to move on to record keeping. You guys should all know this. We're supposed to keep stuff for 7 years. Keep those approval notes, you know, your agendas, which the system automatically, program agenda, that's your course requests. They're there. Don't have to worry about that. Summary of evaluations, that's all online, so you really don't have to worry about that either. The system's going to take care of that for you. You do need to keep your sign-in sheets, and they say a record of clock hour recipients and the number of hours received. What I like to do is when I post a course in that posting list, I love that posting list. Did I link this to the wrong one? I think I did. Oh man, I'll have to go in. I have one saved in my, I'll go find you a posting list. This is, okay, and excuse my symbols not wonky. I did report it to the programmers and I'll have it fixed. So when I post a course, I like to print off this particular report, and I would put it on top of my sign-in sheets, because it had dates and all that good stuff, and that was what I put on top, and it was nice and neat. And in Vancouver, we actually have a stamp that we'd stamp on here, and it had a couple other steps, because this is and then we would date and who did the actual posting of the course, and then this would go, a copy of this would go, just the top page, because we actually kept the sign-in sheets in HR or in PD. And then the top sheet would go to HR, because they did the upload because they use Skyward in Vancouver for payroll. They would go, and she would have her stack, and then when she actually did the upload into Skyward, she would initial, so she could keep track of when she did this, the upload. And then she would also put the day that she changed the course's status to posted. So they have this whole little list, so they know exactly where they are in the process. So if she was gone, someone could step in and everything. So I like this report, and that was part of those, that record keeping thing. So they always knew exactly where they were in the process. Anyway, that was a ramble. That's just an idea that one district does to kind of help them with their keeping track and their record keeping. Questions, comments, thoughts? Yes.
This is Sue from Central Valley School District in Spokane. Hi. That particular report, when I go to post the classes, I keep an electronic file on every class that I've posted.
Yes.
And I can't tell you how many times I've had to go back in and look at the information for someone who's either contesting or
Yes.
I'm sure I did this or I'm sure I signed in or whatever. But I'll make a copy of the sign-in sheet. I'll scan it, and then also the I drop everything into an Excel spreadsheet because I have to upload them into Business Plus. So
Yes.
I will keep a copy in the electronic file of the spreadsheet that shows the number of clock hours everybody got, and the sign-in sheet that shows everybody that has signed in for that class, and the posting list, so that at any time I can go back to class number 3158, let's say, and I've got all that information just at a couple of clicks, and I've used that over and over and over because stuff comes up. So it's been real helpful. That posting list is really helpful.
It saves your bacon. And I meant to,
Yeah.
and thank you for pointing out, a lot of my districts keep electronic copies, and you can do that because you just got to keep copies for 7 years, whether electronic or paper. And I meant to put that in there. So thank you for also bringing that up. That's an important thing. There's rules with electronic copies. They have to be on a there's backup and server and all these different rules. And I'm not going to say them today because I'll say them wrong because I'm tired. My brain's not there. But every school district kind of knows those rules, and you guys should all be in compliance with those, so you shouldn't have to worry about it. You want to be saving them to your actual, like district drive or whatever, not onto your actual computer. Then you're in compliance with that. But
well, and our professional development department also keeps hard copies of the actual sign-in sheet.
Yes.
So that all those live signatures are on there, and they keep those. So we both have copies in case there's ever any problem.
Yes, and that's exactly. And you'd be surprised how many times, like 6 years after the fact, I've had to go into the back file room and dig through because someone was a couple credits shy and they needed, their cert. They had to renew their certificate and they're a couple credits shy, and they would send me in the back room to dig through all of those sign-in sheets to make sure and that we didn't miss anything or we didn't make a mistake because the employee was for sure they took this class and we didn't give them credit. And, so they do save your bacon, and we could show a lot of times that no, they didn't, or yeah, they came, but they didn't do something, or, so yes. Record keeping's your friend, and I don't think you can overdo it when it comes to this. All those little reports and notations and all that stuff, it's there to save you headaches in the end. Thank you for sharing, Sue. That was wonderful. Other questions? Anybody else have anything they want to add? Things they do? And yes, Sherry, I will send you this PowerPoint. You guys, I want to show you one. Is this the end of my PowerPoint? I can't remember. Do I have another slide? Okay, so questions. First off, I'll open this up for questions. And then if you guys have a second, I want to show you a couple things that I've done on your sites just as a resource for you. So I will, I'm going to go to, since I'm going to keep picking on Vancouver, but on the management tab, under the management tab, PD Manager Resources, you'll have a resource. The management tab has a resource tab as well. We have updated the PD documentation since we had this latest release. And on here, it's like the master documentation. So it goes into the big nitty gritty. We haven't gotten to updating like your individual customized versions of things. But if you want to know everything there is to know about course requests, and this will include any like defaults you're not using, you will now have all that documentation available to you. And same, all of this we've updated. We've put that link to the clock hour provider. Some of you, I was so proud to see, already had that there. I'm going to add the TPEP criteria stuff there too. I just didn't get that quite yet. I updated the documentation on user roles and made it very specific to professional development. There's even information on how to pull in expert information to get a list of your users and the roles. So if you want a list of everybody who has the instructor role, there's nice information step by step on how to pull that information. So if you want to check who you've given that role to, and maybe there's some people that don't need it anymore, that you have that at your fingertips on how to get that. But the last thing I want to show you, actually second to last thing, there's also a link to the form for when you have duplicate accounts and you need to get them merged here. If you have a JAS account, Deb likes you to work with HR because they might need to do some work with their JAS account first, like printing off application materials. So, but there's a link here so you can let us know, okay, somebody has 3 accounts, can we get them all combined into one? But the last thing I want to point out is all of our training webinars that we do, I've made a little Google site, and after we do the webinar, there's a link, you can come here and you can find those webinars and the handouts. So if you click on PDS training, here, we did this same webinar last week. I'm going to update because I changed the PowerPoint ever so slightly. If you click on this link, it'll be a recording of the actual webinar. So if you wanted to watch it, you could fast forward and find, you could rewatch anything. And then the actual PowerPoint is here, and you can open it and you can download a copy. And so these are all of our last year PowerPoints on here, and I will continue to update this as we have PowerPoint or as we have training. So if you miss one or you just want to know, or if you're looking for some help on something, you might come here and just say, okay, do they have a PowerPoint on or a training? You can come look here and use this as a resource. And you'll notice there are stuff kind of system-wide, so that system manager menu, so there's things on passwords and whatnot. And so our goal is to kind of grow this over time, and hopefully so people have the option to go and, you know, have resources available for them. So those times when maybe you can't get a hold of Deb and I, or you like to work independently, you have those available to you. So I just wanted to add that as just to make you aware that that's available to you. But yes, anybody who wants a copy of today's PowerPoint, I could send that to you, but it's also going to be up here so you can come and grab it anytime you want it. Any other questions? That's, I think, all I have for you today. You guys do great work. You know, I'm so proud of all of you. I am. I've been in your, well, in different capacities. You know, I got my start working in professional development under the HR umbrella. You know, in Vancouver, I worked there for 11 years, 8 of them specifically working with the professional development portal. And of all of HRM's products, it's my favorite. And so I always love it when we get to do webinars, or anytime I get to work with the PD clients. I hate to say it, but it's my favorite, and your guys are kind of my favorite. So thank you for putting up with me and my rambling. And thanks for sharing, you know, what you're doing, what's working, and your ideas. And Deb and I are excited to work with some of you, like working on that biography section, maybe cleaning up some language and trying to help problem solve and getting instructors cleaned up. After Christmas, I'm going to be setting up a bunch more webinars, and I'm really looking for ideas on topics that would be helpful and meaningful, specifically for my PD clients. Like, what would you like us to focus on? Are there areas that would be helpful? So if you think of something, drop us an email, and we can work on creating, you know, our webinars specific for you guys. I'm going to quit talking. Deb and I will stay on the line for anybody who wants to chat. Otherwise, thank you. Have a great day. Happy Thanksgiving. It's almost here, which is hard to believe.